Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the We Are Not Lonely podcast. Today's episode is going to be more of me just going on a tangent after tangent. The thing is, Leo's not here today because I requested him not to join today's podcast because I'm gatekeeping him. No, jokes aside, the reason that he's not here is because I wanted to practice mixing my own audio and I wanted to start off with just one audio initially at least. So that's why he's not here. I suppose this is like the origin story of me becoming a mixing and mastering engineer. I wanted to master my own audio, not mix it, I suppose. Yeah, technically. Just fix the volumes and all of the rest. Anyway, welcome back. I've got a few things to talk to you about today. I've decided to do a small experiment. Generally, what Leo and I have done so far is we just go off on topic and we go on tangents after tangents and we eventually wrap up on the entire video as a whole, on the entire topic as a whole. But I want to try something different, so I've kind of prepared, you could say. Right? It's not much of a preparation. I've just got like these bullet points in front of me, basic topics that I wanted to talk about. I've got about like 5-6 points that I wanted to talk about, and that's about it. Yeah. So let's begin. The first thing I want to tell you is my website is up. I will put the link in the description. You can check it out. It's not much of a website. It's supposed to be a blog, etc., etc. I've just created something on WordPress for the moment. It's also a way for me to show off my portfolio. I'm an artist as well, and I've been putting up most of my artwork on Instagram, but I've decided to do something different and showcase my portfolio on my own website. It's there's a lot of work, I guess. There's a lot of work, I suppose, but we'll get there. We'll get there. So yeah, our website is up. Next, cool. Lot. It's funny. It feels weird to have pointers in my hand when I'm usually just so chaotic. But it's okay. This is something new that I want to try out. Let's see what happens. Cool. I apologize in advance for the inadvertent noises of construction happening. You will hear a hammer. You will hear a bunch of things happening in the background. It's because construction's happening right next to my house, and unfortunately, I haven't quite found a way to reduce the sound issues in my room. I suppose I could have just pointed the freaking mic elsewhere because this is that kind of a mic. Damn it, I'm an idiot. Now, if I do something, it's probably gonna pick up on the nasty shit that I do. Wait, let me try that. Let me try that. 350. Okay, just a second. Okay, this should work. Cool. And we're back. Sorry about that. But oh no, that I'm gonna have to delete that too. 45. Okay, I'm back. Yes, wonderful. So the thing is, a few things I want to talk about. Recently, I've been consuming a lot of Red Pill content. If it hasn't been obvious from my previous conversations with Leo, I am not particularly on the side of social justice. There's a bunch of reasons. I am definitely not a feminist. As in, I believe in equality, but I don't really, shall we say, go along with today's definition. I don't go along with today's ideas of feminism, right? I believe in equality. I suppose I should throw that out there before someone misquotes me out of context. Anyway, yeah. So some of the things I want to talk about were the Red Pill message, for example. Now, I'm not an expert. I've just been consuming a decent amount of Red Pill content. And so this entire metaphor for this red pill, blue pill thing it stems from the movie The Matrix, and I believe the original the directors, I forget their names. They are tired of people using this, but hey, The Matrix was a cultural phenomenon, and it's literally changed the way people talk about a lot of things, right? It was a movie ahead of its time, at least the first movie. I loved it. I watched it when I was young and it blew my mind. I watched it recently, it still blew my mind. The message in it is quite insane. So, anyway, with respect to the red pill and the blue pill. Now, in the movie, spoiler alert, Matrix, Neo, the main character, Mr. Neo, Mr. Anderson, Mr. Anderson is a hacker. He's a programmer. He's searching for something, the truth, you could say. And eventually, what he does is he's faced with a choice. He meets Morpheus, who is the god of dreams in classical mythology, in Greek mythology. And Morpheus offers him a choice. He offers him the red pill and the blue pill. Now, I suppose in a way that that's what the entire meaning is. It's not literally the color of the pill. The pill represents a choice, right? Now, the choice that Neo faces, that Mr. Anderson faces, is to take the red pill and wake up to find out how deep the rabbit hole goes. He would get all the answers. He would understand eventually. He would understand what the Matrix is, what the Matrix was. Or he would take the blue pill. He would go to sleep, wake up with no memory of the event, and he would believe whatever he wanted to believe. Now, I wanted to get into that for a second. Remember, I said something about this whole thing being a choice, right? You choose to awaken to the reality of the world, or you choose to close your eyes, to ignore the reality, and to remain trapped in your own fantasy. Essentially, that is the choice between the red pill and the blue pill. Now, essentially, now the common, there's a lot of red pill content out there. One of the people that have been, one of the podcasts that have been talking about this is Fresh and Fit. Now, I have my own issues with Fresh and Fit. I've listened to some of their podcasts. I've watched a lot of their videos with Eba and Preach. I've watched their videos with Eba and Preach, and now I know that that's possibly not their actual personality and that's something that they're portraying, but I don't think they're the best spokespersons for the red pill community per se. They do have a lot of influence, and Rollo Tomasi's been on that podcast several times. I think Michaela Peterson's been on that podcast several times. Andrew Tate. They've got a lot of people, interesting people on their podcast, and they've gotten a lot of flack recently for this whole controversy where they stated that they wouldn't date black women, despite them being black themselves, and a lot of people got up in arms about it, despite their things. Now, I'm not here to comment about that. I'm just giving you some context on who Fresh and Fit are. But what I did want to talk about is this whole thing about the red pill. Patrice O'Neill is one of the early, shall we say, the origins for this thing. So it's essentially a philosophy that puts self-improvement. Now, let me just try to summarize the red pill and then I'll talk about Patrice O'Neill for a bit. Essentially, the red pill is about improvement. Okay? You wake up, you understand that there are certain realities, certain biological realities about men and women, which I suppose a lot of people would love to ignore, but that's not something I'm going to get into right now. The red pill is taking the red pill is essentially to understand that there are certain biological differences between men and women. And those biological differences compel us to act in certain ways. It's definitely not about hating women. Okay? I just want to clarify that. Now, there's been a bit of an overlap in the modern day because of MGTOW, which literally means men going their own way, because of the situation in the modern dating market. Now, again, I must tell you that I'm not an expert at this. I'm just reading this. I'm reading several books on the topic, and I just thought I would share my opinion on the same. Now, the core message of the Red Pill is self improvement. Okay? The focus is to improve yourself, to better yourself, and essentially get good at life. And if anybody's against that, I think you need to take a long, hard look at yourself. Okay? This is the core philosophy of the Red Pill. Okay? Improve yourself. It's basically, it puts the focus on the self. And the Red Pill is primarily from a masculine perspective because from what I understand, from what I've read on this particular subject, the dating market and the sexual marketplace is completely different for men and women for several reasons, which I'm not going to get into here on this podcast. I'm going to have to definitely improve my understanding of the entire situation and come back. But yeah, so I've been reading this book called The Book of Pook, which I believe originated in one of the dating forums, the pickup artist and dating forums. Basically, it was a place where men would go to understand what they were doing wrong with their dating lives and to get better, essentially. I've gotten through more than half of the book, and essentially the entire thing on and on and on and on and on. There's a huge part about mindset, there's a huge part about working on yourself, there's a huge part about self-improvement. But the thing that has stuck with me throughout is that the message is primarily about improving yourself. That's what has stuck with me. And the entire book is about 270. It's not a book per se. It's basically a collection of writings, of articles written by this one particular person, I believe, called Pook. It's written by Pook, and Pook shares his views on everything regarding men, women, masculinity, femininity. Primarily, it's from a masculine perspective, and he mentions this several times in the book that whenever Pook tries to describe femininity, he ends up describing masculinity instead, right? Because it's like a mirror or something. Yeah. And there's a bunch of things that really stuck with me in the book. There's this one particular thing where Pook talks about how you should be grateful to the women that rejected you. Because, and I really think this is true, because it's them that show you that you're a loser, and it propels you. They're the catalyst to you bettering yourself, right? Now, as a person with many rejections under his belt, I can tell you that is pretty accurate. That is pretty fucking accurate. I'm not even gonna lie. Yeah. No memes. The hugest changes in my life happened when I was down in my dumps wondering why the fuck I got rejected. And I suppose that's why I've gotten this far. Maybe I'm a bit of a masochist, I don't know. No, man, it's about trying and failing. I need to get over this nonsensical behavior of mine. Anyway, moving on. So that was the thing about the Red Pill message. And I'm going to move on to something about comfort and masculinity. See, this is good. I have like a bunch of topics that kind of relate to each other. And it's so structured. It's so beautiful. I like it. It's kind of... I just have these little words, man, on this paper. And some of the things, I'll just read it out to you. Just so that I can... qualify how important planning is, I guess? I don't know. Some pointers. So essentially, I have a thing about, I have like 6 pointers, and some of the topics that I wanted to cover were masculinity, Red Pill message, about comfort, achieving greatness, and I want to talk about my art journey as well, right? Initially, I spoke about my website as well, yeah. And now I want to talk about Patrice O'Neal because I brought up the whole thing about Patrice O'Neal, right? So I'm going to talk about Patrice right now. Okay. So the reason I decided to do this podcast about this particular message is because I've noticed a particular pattern. I've noticed a pattern, okay? Recently, I've been listening to a lot of content by Patrice O'Neill. It's pretty freaking awesome. I love this guy's take, okay? Now, for those of you who do not know who Patrice O'Neill is, he was a comedian. He passed away in 2011. Um, he spoke about a lot of things. He was a very astute comedian. His his style was conversational. It was controversial. He spoke about women, dating, a lot of topics, femininity, masculinity, racism, stuff like that, right? And I believe, from what I understand, that Patrice O'Neill was. They were all part of this huge gang with Kevin Hart, Patrice O'Neill, Bill Burr. They were all comedians who used to go to comedy clubs together, riff off on each other after the show if their act sucked. You know, that was the kind of group that they had. Right, Bill Burr was part of it, and these are all comedians that I listen to. Right, not so much. I don't listen to Kevin Hart as much, but Patrice O'Neill recently, I've been listening to a lot of his work. Bill Burr, definitely, yes. Dave Chappelle. Recently, Andrew Schulz, yes. So these are some of Kenny Sebastian, these are Naveen Richard. These are some of the comedians that I listen to, right? But I mentioned this because, and to go off on a small tangent, it's interesting to see how all of these guys, great comedians in their own right, okay. Bill Burr is freaking one of the greats, dude. Love his comedy. I love his take on life. I love the way he talks about things. His whole brand is earlier it was balding ginger man is frustrated about the world, and he's just so damn genuine. And his observations on some of these things are brilliant. Yeah. But I'm not going to talk about that. I guess what I want to talk about was this. They had this community of people focused on a goal. All of these guys were comedians and they've pretty much made it in their own right. Now, Patrice, rest his soul, is no longer with us. For those of you who don't know, he had severe blood pressure, diabetes. He joked about it. The funniest thing is this guy jokes about all of that shit in his comedy. He would joke about his inability to get an erection and how that affected his sex life. And this guy is an inspiration. I love his message. And I suppose I've been listening to a lot of his content, which is essentially like, it's pretty much red pill. It's very red pill. In his own words, I guess Patrice calls it pimping. He says you need to be a pimp and you need to pimp your bitch, right? Which is really cool. I love his take on things, and I suppose it kind of coincided with the whole thing. I used to listen to Patrice O'Neill like a year back, and I kind of fell off the wagon, and recently I've gotten back into it. I guess most of the things that I'm listening to are from the Opie and Anthony show. He was on this show with Opie and Anthony and Patrice O'Neill. They had this radio show, and Patrice was a regular there. And I think there are about like 145 episodes of that or something, man. It's pretty freaking hardcore. I love that shit. I know I'm kind of fangirling right now, but yeah, I just wanted to show. I just want to say that, right? So essentially, so what I spoke about in Red Pill, it was more about self improvement, getting better, learning how to internalize game, so to speak. Pook is very against game and PUA and speed dating and NLP and all of that stuff. He just says like have fun, make sure you have fun, be confident, essentially, and have hobbies. Focus on yourself. But yes, so I'm glad I began I've read quite a few PUA books. I've actually tried out some of the things, and I can tell you it works. But yeah, dude. For those getting into all of that side of stuff, PUA, I would definitely recommend reading book. It's more of a series of articles on how to get good and not fall prey to the whole pickup artistry nonsense. I mean, if you're into PUA, cool, bro. That's up to you. But you need to know why you're doing it, and I realized why I'm doing it, and that's why I decided not to pursue that anymore. I guess it works. I will not say no. It does work. Anyway, on comfort, and I guess I will wrap all of this up in a small, dainty little package towards the end of the podcast. But this thing about comfort, it ties in really well to achieving greatness, to the red pill message, as well as masculinity, right? I'm going to talk about masculinity first, man, because I think it's a subject that a lot of people have begun to confuse, alright? It's really weird. Like, as soon as I said I wanted to talk about masculinity, my mind went blank. Now, obviously, these are generalizations, right? But I'm going to back up my generalizations using a little bit of statistics. Primarily from. And I'm going to make a few, like, I'm going to stretch the logic here. Bear in mind, I'm not an expert. I will mention when I'm going to start stretching this to the limits of what I know, alright? So, essentially, the message is there are biological differences between men and women, right? I believe that, okay? It's a freaking fact. And for some reason, stating this fact gets you cancelled. And I just want to say, what the fuck, dude? Like, seriously, it's really weird, but yeah. So I suppose masculinity. What is masculinity, really? Essentially, it's about the Y chromosome, right? It's about testosterone. It's about testosterone. Essentially, everything that talks about being a man kind of falls back on testosterone. Testosterone. Am I pronouncing it right? Testosterone. Okay, whatever. And I suppose that's a huge thing about people who want to transition as well, especially for those doing an F2M transition. It's necessary that they get T, as they call it, testosterone. It makes a huge difference, right? Now, the thing about testosterone, what it does to the human body is it does things. One of the things it does is makes us more aggressive. Okay, and this kind of now looking at how this plays out. Okay, testosterone also apparently makes your voice deeper. It helps with muscle growth and all of that. So, manliness, wide freaking thing about if I had to make a summary, I think it would be strength, it would be aggression, it would be about purpose, drive. I'm just throwing random words out there. It's about drive, it's about power. We stay hungry. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, those are the things, man. And if you had to look at it from the Big Five perspective, what I've read seems to suggest Big Five is a personality model that was arrived after doing statistical analysis and what's that word for it? Damn it, factor analysis. Yes, there you go. I know my statistics. They did factor analysis on a bunch of things. They did factor analysis, and they narrowed it down the characteristics to five personality traits. Okay, you can remember it by using the mnemonic ocean: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Right? We're gonna be talking about agreeableness over here, right? So the studies suggest that the average man is more disagreeable than the average woman. Okay? And this is the part where I'm going to go off script and say maybe, Maybe testosterone has something to do with that. Perhaps. I don't know, right? So, what does it mean to be a man? Good question. Maybe I should make like a YouTube series about exploring that question because I clearly don't have the answer to give right away. I did mention a few things. It's about. I can't do that joke again, can I? Yeah, so essentially the XY chromosome, testicles, balls, it's genitalia, is like certain biological markers. Generally speaking, there's higher upper body strength, etc., etc. Right? And there's a reason I want to talk about masculinity today because that's gonna be my segue into my next freaking digression. But it seems as a society we have been straying from what's important and we've become enamored by comfort, right? And I think that the rise of social justice seems to indicate that there aren't really huge problems that we need to address. And at the same time, there's this entire breaking down of barriers that seems to suggest that, like, for example, the words becoming the words meaning something else. Now, if you've read this book called 1984, changing the meanings of words is one of the best ways to start controlling a populace. It's one of the ways that you can predict the collapse of a society. And I believe this happened several times. If you look at history, this has happened several times, man. So what happened with the Romans is towards the end, right? They became a huge power. They controlled most of Europe, and from what I've read, is they started going on these freaking banging parties, dude. Towards the end, the Roman people got weaker and weaker and weaker. I think one of the greatest emperors, Marcus Aurelius, was one of the last great emperors. And then we had someone like Nero, a freaking madman who would burn people, children, and for entertainment, right? Because he was bored. Yeah. They used panem et circenses to control the population, and that ended up controlling the people as well. Now, why am I going on this huge freaking tangent? The entire point I'm trying to make is that I've read this. What is this? One of my friends used to call me the. I'm just gonna say it, right? So I've heard this thing. I've read this thing on the internet. Good times. No. Bad times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. Weak men create bad times. Something like that, right? And I think as a species, we've essentially. Dude, I'm just gonna say this up straight, okay? We are living in an amazing time. Okay, we have the internet. The average standard of living for a normal middle class person is much higher in a lot of ways than the average king back in 500 AD. Okay? That's a fact, right? We have access to so much. The amount of flavor that we can taste in a single Dorito chip is probably something that a medieval peasant hadn't had. Like a medieval European peasant, India had spices, right? A medieval European peasant wouldn't have tasted in his entire lifetime, right? But the point I'm trying to make is now I'm not going to say that we are perfect. We have our issues, all right? But I think we've gotten so comfortable with life that we've become resentful for not being too comfortable, right? Capitalism has a lot of problems. I'm gonna say this we've had this discussion several times. Capitalism has a lot of problems, okay? The Microsoft cornering the computer market, the personal computer market, is one of the worst things that could have happened. If computers had gone the open source route via Linux, I can't imagine where we'd be right now. For example, I'm gonna just take one of my favorite games back in the day as an example for this. Have you all heard of Skyrim? I'm pretty sure you might have, like, one way or another, right? Now, when Skyrim was released, it was an okay game. But what made it truly magical was the ability to mod it. Okay? And that took Skyrim from an okay game to a completely freaking insane game. The amount of mods in that game are phenomenal. And just remember that this is free. Okay, you buy the game and you can mod it using a number of mods that people have put out for free. All right, so perhaps in certain ways. Now notice how Microsoft is becoming not open source but free, right? It has changed its model of distribution. It's changed from you're gonna have to pay for this to you're gonna have to pay for this with your information. Right? Very clever. Now the issue is it's very difficult to use Linux. Okay, we Windows 11 has ended up in this point where it's got a hell of a lot of bugs, but using Linux is so much more difficult, especially for gaming. There is a possibility, but the amount of adoption in that is so damn low. And I guess, like industry wise, there's a ton of issues on that level as well. NVIDIA is not particularly open to. I believe Linus Torvalds, the creator of Linux, literally said "fuck NVIDIA" or something like that. Oh man, yeah, yeah. Sorry about that little. Went off on a whole different tangent to speak about computers. This happens despite me having a freaking plan. All right. My entire point is, though we're not perfect, though we do have a lot of things to work on, we acknowledge that there's a lot of things to work on, right? Wealth redistribution is one thing that we could definitely do a lot better, right? There's Again, I'm not an expert at this, so I'm just saying there are areas I'm pretty sure we could do better on, right? And not everything is. I mean, things could be simple, I guess. I don't know. Are we? Is it? Is the problem this? Okay. Are things actually really simple, and are we fucking it up? You know? Are we overthinking shit and making it complicated? Is that the issue? Is that the problem? Right? Anyway, yeah, I'm not going to get into this entire topic of governments and um, capitalism versus thing and all that. Those are things I would like to read a lot more about before I start commenting. But I will accept this, okay? Our system does have issues. I agree, okay? I also feel that we could fix them if we worked on ourselves. The issue is everybody gets outraged and chooses to focus on non-issues. And I'm pretty sure that by the time we get our shit together and focus on what's important, we might not have an earth to return to. But I digress. Let's talk about comfort. I suppose in a way, modern society has. Now I'm going to talk about comfort and mediocrity, right? And it's going to be a way to segue into my next topic, which is achieving greatness, I suppose. Yeah, I suppose it would have been better to do it with Leo here. So I'll just like touch on that topic and then move on to what I really want to talk about, which is self plug, my art journey. I'm an artist. You can buy artwork from me. Well, not buy artwork, but you can commission me. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about my art journey towards the end. So, comfort. I'm going to talk about my personal experience with this, right? I guess in a way that life is a choice between comfort and greatness. Okay? Comfort, I guess, in the way that I'm using it, you can substitute it with mediocrity as well, right? Now I say comfort, but I don't mean luxury. Like you get to a place where things aren't bad, and in a way, what happens is our mind adjusts to that, I guess. Now, I'm going to talk about this, right? I used to wake up pretty early. I used to work out in the morning. Not that I don't, it's just I'm going to get to that, right? So, what happened was like a week back, no, a couple of weeks back, I felt sick. This all started with COVID, dude. God damn. Okay, sometime in August of 2020, I got COVID. I felt sick, and since then my routine's been jack shit. I'm still working on getting my shit back together. Excuse me. Yeah. Um, but the entire thing is, for a person who's waking up really early in the morning, think like 5 a.m. every day and doing things like, working out and meditation and stuff like that, it's gotten really easy where I get up and just think, not today. I'll just go back to sleep, you know? And I'm thinking I should make a video about this. I've been saying this a lot, but I'm actually very serious about it. I'm making the steps towards it. I'm taking the necessary steps. Consider all of this an advertisement for my upcoming series. Right? So I guess in a way, comfort is addictive, man. And true growth happens in the area of discomfort, right? Push out of your comfort zone, essentially. So you need to have one step, not too far where you start drowning in uncertainty and confusion, but you move just enough from your comfort zone to learn something new. Okay? And the next time you can push a little further and further and further. My point is essentially, I think this is more of a self-realization, like what I did last episode on the entire podcast. I had a conversation with myself, right? So what I've realized is it's extremely easy to get caught up in comfort, and you get used to it really quickly, and returning to your earlier state, which was your original state, becomes more difficult the more time passes as you are in your comfort zone. Now, I'll just give you an example, right? So, recently my routine has gone to shit. It's all chaos. I used to sleep at 10 p.m. and wake up at 5 on pretty much a daily basis. And I would wake up energetic. Most days I would wake up without an alarm and I just sit and stare at my thing until my alarm rang. That's natural. My body cycle adjusted to that cycle. My body's, my circadian rhythm had adjusted to that. But what happened was after COVID, and like what I realized after COVID was that my immunity was compromised, right? Earlier, I could eat ice cream whenever the hell I wanted without any consequences. Now, this is probably my body telling me that I'm getting old, but this is like it's barely been 6 months since I got COVID, right? And I feel the difference. My stamina has dropped, my immunity's dropped. This is just my experience. I may be wrong, but when I work out, I get tired a lot quicker, and I'm not even doing the full workout that I used to. I used to do a lot of plyometrics, a lot of explosive movements. I used to do a lot of isometric training. I've been seeing this again and again, but I was involved in martial arts training, and my body was in a much better condition than it is now, right? And what I noticed was slowly I would reduce my workout. Like, oh, this much is enough for today. This much is enough for today, because my stamina was oh shit, my stamina was short, and instead of pushing myself, I just chose comfort, right? And that slowly started seeping into other areas. I would wake up at 5, meditate for a bit, and then go back to sleep for half an hour, 45 minutes. Earlier, I would do this because I was sick, and I would just do yoga and come back and like rest and read a book or something like that. But now it's become this full blown routine that if I don't get proper sleep the previous day, I would take a small nap after my meditation, and that would cut into my workout routine, right? And that's the whole freaking shtick, dude. I got addicted to comfort. And my message here is essentially be wary of comfort. Okay, it starts out small. I guess in a way, comfort is a form of entropy upon your system of discomfort. Now, if you have a system and you're working towards a goal, you're doing it because you have a particular thing to achieve and you need to make certain sacrifices, right? You either choose the pain of discipline or you choose the pain of regret. Now, at the moment, and this regret is usually from lack of discipline, aka comfort, right? You see how it all ties up together? Choosing comfort. Now, you can extend this, you can extrapolate this small freaking idea that I gave you into life, right? It's really easy in life to settle for things that you do not really want because of certain circumstances, right? But remember this, I'm so many freaking inspirational words. Okay, remember that you need to strike iron while it's hot. Okay, so freaking iron is heated up to a freaking state where it's really freaking hot. Like I forget the exact temperature, and then it's hammered, and only then. And after all of this, after the iron goes through so much stress, heat, and pressure, and like constant da 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 hammering, and then it becomes a beautiful sword. I don't. Why did I say sword? Because I'm in love with swords. I'm a huge sword fanatic. Eventually, if you want to impress me, just send me a sword, or like learn how to wield it or something. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, my entire point is it takes effort and pain and discipline to truly become great. And I guess as a society, we've been conditioned to choose comfort. We've been conditioned to choose instant comfort because everything's available at the snap of a finger. You want something, just order it on Amazon Prime. You want some food, just get it. And you can just like veg out in front of Netflix or Amazon Prime and just play video games and not really do anything with your life. If that's what you want, great, cool, wonderful. But if that's not what you want and you want to achieve something, you want to become great, then my advice is become disciplined, give up comfort. The pain of discipline will forge you into what you really want to be, man. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say. So I was going to talk about my art journey, but I guess I could end it over here because this entire podcast has been about a particular theme. And if I talk about art, it's going to be completely different, right? But I will just say this. A lot of these lessons came about as I strove to get enough time to practice on art. Indeed, like you could say that my entire productivity and time management journey began because I wanted to fit in more time for my art. I wanted to improve in this particular discipline. And, that led me on this huge journey of self-discovery and improvement and growth. A lot of factors, like you can, looking back, there's no one single factor that really led me down this road, but it was a multitude of factors. It was multivariate that led me down this freaking path. And I guess I've been on this path like a really long time. Productivity for the past 4 or 5 years. I've been doing art since 2019. I've been doing music since 2010. Haven't really gotten anywhere with that. Just like put out a song, I guess. But yeah, I continue to do certain actions on a daily basis because I know for a fact that things will compound, right? And essentially, so that's I guess. So let me wrap this up. Yeah, I spoke about things like masculinity, the red pill message, comfort, about achieving greatness. And I sort of touched on how my art journey had an influence in all of this. I spoke about Patrice O'Neill as well and his message, right? So to wrap it up, if I had to wrap this up, right? My entire message was about self improvement and the necessity of self improvement in order to achieve greatness, and how comfort is the enemy of greatness because it is the antithesis of discipline, right? If you're comfortable, you're not in pain. Now, that is, right? Comfort is choosing momentary pleasure over long term gains. And I guess that's a huge part of becoming great. You learn to delay gratification. And I think that's the most problematic part of our society is that, we've got very few people have learned how to delay their gratification. Everybody else is all about that instant gratification. And I guess we've been trained, right, by society and a bunch of other factors to want to crave instant gratification. But if you want to become great, work on yourself. No matter what, it will take you places. It's a beautiful journey. It's a wonderful journey, and I think like it would be wonderful if a lot more people did it. I know for sure that if everybody was working on themselves and bettering themselves on a daily basis, this world would be a much better place than it is now. Instead of all of us getting angry about something that we can't control, trying to control somebody else's actions, we focus on controlling our own actions. You know? And I guess this goes back to karmanyevadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. You do activities, okay? What you can focus on over here. Now I'm gonna link this to stoicism. I'm just gonna end it over there after that. Right? Karmanyevadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. Karma, you do the action, right? The general understanding is what is in your hands, right? Is the ability to do something, right? Your actions, your ability, what you can control. Focus on that. Forget about the results, okay? If you get it, wonderful, right? But remember that those are beyond your control. You can't really control the results of a certain action. There are certain hidden variables that will influence the outcome in certain ways, right? So what you can focus on is yourself, your expectations, what you want to do, right? And I suppose that's pretty much it. Thank you for listening, guys. Thank you for joining me on today's podcast. I hope you learned something. We will most probably be joined by Leo the next week. He's working on a certain project. I don't want to reveal things, but yeah, he's working on a certain project and that's taking up a lot of his time. Also, I wanted to learn how to mix and master by myself. So this is sort of an experiment for me, I suppose. Anyway, if you liked what I had to say today, leave a like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think about it. Do you agree? Do you not? Let's have a discussion. I think a healthy discussion goes a long way. Anyway, thanks everybody. Take care. Stay hydrated. Get a back support if you work from home, if you play games and all that stuff. Okay? Cool. Bye-bye. And I will see you again next week. Take care. Ciao.